Rosenberg.
Yeah, Rosenberg was.
Welcome everyone to the April 11th, 2023 Bloomfield Hills City Commission meeting. Let's all please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item we have is the consent agenda, and that includes the minutes for the regular meeting held on February 14th. Do you have any comments, questions from the commissioners?
I did have one. Sandra?
Yes.
She's like, I knew it, Susan. I just, U.S. Bank St. Paul, tax bond series 2015 interest. What is that?
That is the interest for the bond for the water and sewer.
Oh, for the water and sewer one. Okay, I knew the other one. I did not know that one. Okay, I just wasn't familiar with that particular one. And then, the training for the public safety is great, all of it that you're doing.
Thank you.
And also with the dispatch and everything, and keeping them,
Yes.
and especially timely for the training for the active shooter on the 4 senior officers that
Yes.
are going. So they'll do a train the trainer when they come back, right?
On the active shooter portion, that's a individual class that they go to.
Oh, it is?
The first one is more of a classroom preparation, and the second one that you see in that memo is more of a skills-based individual practical training.
Oh, okay, that's great, that's great, that's wonderful. Okay, that's all I have.
Anyone else? Are you ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second? Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or opposed? Thank you. It's missing from the agenda, but I think the next item is public comments, and this is actually the only place in the meeting where we will be taking public comments. If you have any, please raise your hand, wait to be recognized, state your name and your address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Yes.
As you know, my name is Kate Elton, 29 Manor Court. I'm here on behalf of Reva Rosen. She was unable to attend. She has written a letter and she asked me to read it to you. Probably needless to say, it concerns the noise on Woodward. Mayor, commission members, and city manager, last weekend, one of the holiest of the year, was also the beginning of one of the noisiest seasons yet for our Woodward community. It was obvious that the city, police, commission, and general administration has done little planning on how to address the long-standing seasonal noise problem that adversely affects the quality of life for up to a quarter of Bloomfield Hills households. Does it mean anything to the city that these households represent an estimated $100 million in taxable value? Bloomfield Hills doesn't provide a park, a library, sidewalks, or many other amenities available in similar high-end communities. Most of us along Woodward also pay 100% of the cost to maintain our private roads. Yet our tax multiple is second only to Birmingham. Visually, we do have meticulously maintained flowers on the Woodward median, taken care of by the priciest of landscapers. Beautiful, but of no value to us when we have loud cars and motorcycles racing. We all wonder about your budgeting priorities. When I, this is Reva, called the police last Friday evening to complain about the situation, loud noise and screeching that went on literally for hours, I could hear the officer's frustration with my complaint and their inability to control it. He told me that there was one car patrolling on Woodward, outnumbered. Obviously, we do not have enough police cars or staff allocated properly for this problem. This is a bad situation that happens every year, and you should be addressing it. We are all very tired of being nice about the noise. It will affect our voting for representatives and bond issues. Chief Clayson participated with the citizens and with other cities to address the problem, and he kept us well informed. Now, after proposed legislation to revise the motor vehicle code supposedly went to Lansing, we hear nothing. We have repeatedly offered to help. We hear nothing. At this point, it's obvious to us that you don't care. As a city, you approved residential zoning along Woodward. Now you need to be working to make the Woodward corridor reasonably quiet, which is far from our current situation. And Reva, as you probably know, is the president of Boulder Park Condos. I can't say that I disagree with anything that she's written. The winter was wonderful, it was quiet, and it's the way we would like it to be all year. And I know it's a big problem, but this has been going on for years, and we would like to see some remedies.
The city management, it has to be a state legislative issue because they won't allow us to go after people for
We know
noise.
that. We know that.
Right, and the fact that, of course we care. I don't live that far off Woodward, but
But what happened to the package? I mean, I was here last fall, and there was talk that every lawyer in Oakland County had looked at it, and there was proposed legislation. What happened to it? We hear nothing.
We prepared the legislation. We prepared a detailed opinion letter. We sent it up to the legislature, our state senator, our state representative, and that's where it sits. And that may not be an answer that satisfies the public, but the fact of the matter is as Commissioner McClure said, it's a legislative fix. It's not a local fix that we have any control over. All we can do is come up with proposed language, tell them the reason that we think this language should be adopted by the legislature, and hope that they can champion our position. Past that, there's...
When did it go? To the old legislature, or did it go in 2023 to the
Dave
new
can
legislature?
address that, because I actually
Who
signed
did
a
it
letter
go
when
to?
I was mayor.
Right.
Dave and I both signed a letter. Dirk helped us draft it. We can get you a copy of that. I'll be glad for you to see it. Dave, when did we send that? Was that?
Well, I think we did send it to the old legislature, but what I think is important here is that I personally read the reports of the police station every day, and I know maybe Chief Gormley can talk about his plan, but it is a little unfair to say that we don't care and we're not doing anything, because I'm actually seeing them. Now, I'm not sure what sort of response we really have on the phone, but if this is not the case, we have officers available to be out there, and they are out there, and I'd like Chief Gormley to make a comment on what is the plan. I think, and it's good to know, or it's important to know that the plan has just started. It's just gotten warm enough, and it was very warm last weekend, last holiday weekend, and that's probably why you heard all the noise. It was probably quiet all winter long because those folks haven't had their cars out.
Of course.
But it's going to start up, and these officers are going to address it like we did last year. There's no difference in the plan. As a matter of fact, we did make some improvements to the plan. Our improvements that we have more officers available, not just because of your request, but because the whole city deserves to have more patrol officers when needed. So our shifts are actually designed now to where these officers can be out there during the prime time of these loud noise that you're experiencing. Now, if Reva experienced this last weekend, I don't doubt it, but I also don't doubt that Chief Gormley has a plan in place, and maybe Chief, you can talk about it.
Absolutely. We have started, and we started last weekend. I spoke with Chief Gallagher from the township as well as the new chief in Birmingham, and they also started last weekend. We're putting additional officers dedicating them to Woodward. We are keeping 3 on Woodward as much as possible, which is probably 90% of the time outside of when we just don't have an active police situation that's taking them away. And during that time, we're really concentrating between 5 p.m. and 1, 2 a.m. whenever that noise level starts to drop down and that traffic drops down. Last night, I noticed our midnight shift made 10 stops between 7 p.m. and 12 p.m. and wrote 6 citations. So we are working on that. We also have reached out to the new legislators and requested a meeting with them. Unfortunately, we haven't got a response, but the 3 of us did reach out and request a meeting with them.
Well, that's the key. I mean, I know that the state law has to change, but you know, you guys send it up to a lame duck legislature, and last fall.
Just reached out to the
We sent it to-
redistricting,
We
you know,
sent it to Mallory McMorrow, our current senator, and I was on a phone call with her. She was giving an update on her budget matters, and I raised the matter. I said, you know, we sent you a letter, the letter that Dirk had put together, asking for proposed legislation, so she's aware of it. She didn't give me any response then, and she asked that I follow up. We followed up. Amy sent the letter again to her. This was quite a long day. When was that, when I was on that call? That was like last summer, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And she wasn't very, I have to say, when I spoke with her, she wasn't very receptive. That's all I have to say. I don't know why, but she wasn't.
Well, Chief Clayson had invited Reba and me to sit in on the Zoom meeting with her and the other chiefs of police, and basically, she said at the end of that meeting that it's a Republican legislature and I'm a Democrat, so I can't get anything done. Now, of course, that's changed. It's a Democrat legislature with a Democratic government.
She wasn't receptive to it herself. I mean, that's how she responded to me personally on a Zoom call. So she said,
It's too bad.
she said, oh, well, you know, we're working on, people want a more walkable Woodward, people want, she really changed the subject, and so we followed up again, and we have not heard anything back from her.
Well,
In addition to Woodward, we're also having a lot of problems on some of our other local streets. Updike has become a significant problem, Updike and South Boulevard, just outside of the city. And then when they go there and we address those issues, and we go up there and help them, because those issues just fall right back into the city. They come right down into St. Hugo's, they come right down into OCC's property and those parking lots. So as soon as we move them from one area, we have to kind of move them out of those other areas too.
We do have an Oakland County Commission here this evening, who is a Democrat, who maybe could help us with this. So if
Well,
you,
as a matter of fact, I can speak to it. My name is Marcia Gershenson. I'm a new commissioner to Bloomfield Hills. And I've just been brought up to speed on this incident, on this problem. And we're having a meeting next week with Birmingham, Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township. And I would invite you, Chief, I'm sorry I didn't know, it's next week, and I'll just need your email to discuss this. And I also would be happy to reach out to Senator McMorrow and see what we can do. I've just been brought into it because I actually have always represented west of here. But it seems to be a problem. Pontiac's the other community that'll be there.
It's a problem.
Yeah,
I've
no,
been complaining for 10 years. 10
And
years.
there are other people are as frustrated as you are, so here's my comment.
And we've got a new state senator now, Jeremy Ross, so. And with redistricting. You know, I'll say again, if you want citizens to write letters or whatever, we'll do it, but.
you should contact McMorrow. The more of you call and bug the representatives as an individual, you should all do that, because that's what they're going to listen to.
You know, it's ridiculous, and.
Well, I think my belief is since COVID, people got in their cars, the auto industry has put a lot of these high-end, Susan, you know more about this, high-end mufflers in these cars. And, I mean, it's a problem. Have you been in downtown Chicago lately? I mean, you can be on the 30th floor of a hotel and you can hear them revving their engines in right downtown Chicago. It's a problem kind of everywhere right now, but if there's a way that we could solve it through some legislation, increased police presence probably helps in the short run.
I know the police try here. I know that the chief is really making an effort, but it's not enough. I
Could
mean, we judge results, not efforts.
Yeah.
So,
Could you also please tell Rita, we actually have the lowest millage in southeastern Michigan, one of the lowest in the entire state. Yeah, that's, so if she has a question, she should talk to our finance director, or she can contact me, because our millage is one of the lowest in, certainly in Oakland County, if not the entire southeastern Michigan. So there's some misconception there about millage rates. I mean, a lot of your taxes go to Oakland County Parks, community college, all of that, but the city itself, we're 10.3 mils. Okay. Thanks.
Would you like us to, excuse me, Mayor, would you like us to take the letter and give her a written response to any of this?
Would you like a copy of it? Yeah, the letter.
I would love to have what was sent to, and you know who it was sent to. Up in Lansing, is that what you're?
No, I'm asking for your letter that you just read.
I can email a copy if you,
Okay,
if
to
you'd like
Amy,
to, how about if I
So
send
that
it
we
to
can
Amy?
clarify with her some of the
Sure,
misunderstandings
Sure.
as well.
I'll ask her to do that then.
Thank you.
Okay.
What might be helpful also is this, is Chief can build that relationship with you, but I think that he's just started with this issue in Woodward, so he'd be happy to speak both with you and Reva throughout this time of year and summer when all this noise occurs, to kind of keep you updated.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Quiet, please.
Electric vehicles can't get here fast enough, huh?
Well, I heard they're putting recordings in them, so they make noise.
That is a problem, is that you can't hear them when people are on the roads.
And they can,
Yeah.
you know, zoom, zoom, zoom. recording stuff.
Thank
we
you
are
very
concerned.
much for your
Yeah.
attention and for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
As I said, I'm Marcia Gershenson. I am currently the vice chair on the Board of Commissioners. I am new to Bloomfield Hills. I'm just learning some of your issues. But tonight I wanted to just make a comment on the transit, your new transit millage that you have. The county has just hired a transit planner. His name is Eli Cooper, and he will be the contact person with, I would assume, Mr. Hendrickson, and I will be coordinating a meeting so that we better understand what Bloomfield Hills would like with your millage dollars for transit, what kind of services you think would be beneficial to your community. We currently are going to be having an on-demand app for residents to schedule a flex car to come and pick them up. And we will also have a reservation-based service for seniors, people with disabilities, and veterans. But to better understand where you would like to have a route, I would really like to put together a meeting so that we have your input and you will have confidence. You can talk to me about what you think you need.
You know, there's been preliminary discussion, and I know the staff and our head of our planning commission are going to be looking, and the city commission, of what the needs are. But, you know, to be honest, of the $20 million extra that SMART is getting, $1 million of it is coming from the city of Bloomfield Hills. And, you know, we're all grateful that we're a community of means, and we are a donor community for most things. You know, I think we'll need to figure out whether it's the app situation, something that more of our residents might be interested in versus,
Right.
you know, bus stops, I would think. But I'm just speaking for myself. That I would think an on-demand kind of service for some of our senior residents perhaps would be more on-demand for you know, things up and down the corridor makes more sense than probably a lot of stops, but I'm just speaking for myself, at least preliminarily. So.
Well, we want your feedback, so we'll be arranging a meeting with, there'll be 3 transit specialists that will be working in Oakland County. So particularly for the communities that have opted out, this is all new for you, so we want to be sure to hear what you think your community could use.
And if I may, because I've been involved in some of these meetings for over a decade, over the years, I would encourage you to listen, because sometimes they would say it was a listening tour when they used to try to go out on the millage, but if you actually asked a question, they didn't want to hear it. It was really more, we're telling you we want to convince you tour. And I think, the millage is passed, our residents were about 50-50 on it, it's passed. But to listen and of what we want or what we feel our needs are versus telling us what has worked in Wisconsin or something.
Well, you have a clean slate because you've never had any services before, so this is a perfect opportunity for you to communicate with us. And that's the whole reason we've hired this gentleman, is to come into all the local communities and listen to what you think you need, because I wouldn't begin to guess what you need.
So I'm intrigued by this on-demand service app, like in Uber, or is that what it is?
No, it will be vehicles that are purchased specifically for this. I believe they're called flex vehicles. And they'll be all over the county, and people will be able to call for particular services that they need. They'll be able to make a reservation.
Maybe like small vans?
Smaller, right.
That they would pick them up at their houses as
Pick them up
opposed
at
to
their
going
house.
to their...
And then there may be other stops where they do, but again, it's all being developed right now. So this is the ground floor and a good time for us to share information.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Dave will work with you and talk. I mean, we have our challenges in the city because we don't have a city center like other people do. Our topography is such that, it's to try and make a bus stop here and then have someone parking somewhere is a challenge for us. But I do see the on-demand service would be something that if the residents knew about it, that would be something that I would see that residents would take advantage of.
Well, once it gets rolled out, we'll be doing a lot of press about it. It's hard nowadays to get the message out to residents without a newspaper, but we have a tremendous communications team at the county, and we'll be working on it because we want all the residents, seniors, veterans to know that these services are available and free.
Yeah,
They're free? They're free? Oh.
Well, you're paying for it with
No, but I mean to the residents.
Yeah, they're free to the
They
residents.
wouldn't pay anything.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, because we don't, unless you're gonna have a park in, we don't know that there's any place within our community where you can do a park and drive, which is what most, those were the kind of questions I had asked years ago, and no one would really tell me how that would work because, if you residential lots that are an acre, 2 acres, 4 acres, it doesn't really, and there's all these stats on people are willing to walk a third of a mile. If you go to the Highway Association, and I read through all that stuff, and the civil engineers, the average person will only walk X distance, and it only makes sense if you have 24 people per acre, and, we don't have that here. So what makes sense for us may be totally different than what makes sense for Ferndale.
So it isn't necessary we have a bus stop here?
It isn't necessary, my guess is you will on Woodward. There will be a stop somewhere on Woodward, but that's my guess. There is no definite plans yet. No, there's no requirement.
Is this flex program in action right now
No.
anywhere? Or
No,
do you have
hasn't
an
started.
example of another city that does this and what parameters?
You mean in Oakland County or?
No, just
Oh,
in the nation.
yeah, I'm sure there is. I don't.
I saw one today by my office in Troy.
Oh, great.
Well,
It was
because-
a van that had on the side that said Smart Flex. It's a small van, not big.
Well,
Yeah.
the three communities that had their own transit system, which is Woda, Noda, and the Old People's Commission in Rochester, they do have services. But they already had a transit system that we rolled into the countywide. So our goal is that their services do not stop as we're developing all the new systems. So I'm glad to hear that one of the cars was out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that this guy's gonna come in the communities and he's gonna really learn, and I would hate to put his bus stop just to put a bus stop and have it be never used.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there isn't a need, I can't imagine they're gonna want to.
I really love the flex plan. I think it's very creative. I think it's something that some of our residents will use, probably some of Cranbrook students or something would use, or whatever, so.
Well, also
Yeah,
seniors,
yeah,
and I think you have the
elderly
highest senior,
Yeah.
one of the highest senior populations in the county. So seniors have been very responsive to the.
I can see that. I can absolutely see that. So I just, again, I would stress that, let's not put a bus stop just to put a bus stop, if it's not gonna be used. It's like,
I
why?
think they're gonna be listening to what you,
Yeah, I love the
what you
flex
feel.
plan. Good idea.
I know we're digressing a lot here, but one of the things with the bus stop is, you know, to cross Woodward, you have to have a light on both sides. There's like nowhere where we have a light where you could walk. So then you have to put in all the infrastructure to put in some other stoplights. And then the question is that something we have to pay for, or does the state pay for, or does the SMART pay for? So there were all these kind of questions about putting in a stop, because where would it work and how would people, okay, they could do it one direction, but if they wanted to cross the street, there's no light, so they'd be running across the.
well, the millage would pay for it, the money from the millage would pay for it, but it has to be determined that that's something that is needed in this community,
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Well, that's good to know.
okay?
Quick question.
Sure.
Are the needs based solely on the community, or are they based on people that might need access to the community?
We are basing what would work in Bloomfield Hills on Bloomfield Hills residents.
Okay.
Great. That's a good question, because it's the one paying for it.
I mean, they do some studies on ridership for bus stops, but the problem is we don't have any data.
They did it,
Um,
12 years ago, they did a survey, and there were 7 people that said they'd use a public bus. And that included, you know, some employees too. It was residents and employees. That is 12 years old, but
It might be surprising if you can check to see who would ride a bus, that there would be that many people, even on folks that come in town.
yeah.
Well, and also, we did a blueprint for our aging senior population, and I wanted to leave you with a copy so that you have an idea of some of the projects that are coming for our seniors. We've just hired a senior coordinator, and as I said, your community has a very high density of seniors. So I'm going to leave this with you, and we've got more on order, so I'll drop some more off.
Thank you.
Mary, I make a suggestion on the previous complaint that was brought up. Would it make sense to, in the newsletter that's coming out soon, to add who people can contact in the state legislature and write a letter to?
Is it already in print?
It's not in print.
Or we can put it on the website.
Yeah, we can find a website.
But if it's in the newsletter too, I think it would appease, you know, people more people might see it. I don't think many people go to the website.
If you can fit it in.
If not, we can do the next one.
Yeah, well, we're not done with the big priority.
It would just be a one-liner, it wouldn't take much, you know. If you're concerned about the noise on Woodward, please send a letter to.
Yeah, because they were,
With the
you know,
address.
like I said, I think I told Dave right away after I spoke with Marilyn McMorrow how unreceptive she was. She was very negative about it. And the one thing she said was, well, I don't want to waste my time on something that isn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah, she was very up against, going against the big three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Amy, do we have any room in there?
There's probably room on the back page.
So-
That information is on our website, but we can fit in
Well,
on the
what we
newsletter.
might want to do, maybe what we could do is just if Chief Lumley could just do a little blurb about this officer's going to be out there, this is the season where there's noise issues, we're doing what we can, and you can contact the legislators. And that might be a very good
But
idea.
maybe with the email address of the legislator?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people are like, oh yeah, I want to do that, but they don't.
No,
Does
yeah.
that sound good to do something like that, have them kind of explain and then?
Yeah.
Something, okay.
Anything else on that? No. The Bay Lake Board. I think our city manager will present.
Well, Mayor, I wrote a lengthy memo, but probably the best thing to do is to maybe have Jamie Burton talk, just introduce it, but, or even Ryan from the county. Love to talk about it, explain everything. What do you think, Jamie? Ryan, have come up?
I was going to get there to introduce Ryan. So this is, I'll say it this way, the process for establishing lake boards, lake levels is a county-driven process, and Oakland County has Ryan and other resources available, and they're the ones who take the lead on these things, and so they went and met the homeowners. We actually talked to a couple homeowners. Dave asked me to talk to a few of them about various things, or alternatives, which would be a local SAD or a local system, which I didn't think there was, at the time, would be right when we have a legally established process. So we kicked them over to the county, and then Ryan, why don't you give them kind of an overview of the two projects, and happy to answer any questions. Sure.
No one's actually come up to the podium, so it's like going,
That's many people there.
yeah, so I actually talked to them in November. We had a meeting in this room with the residents. They signed petitions at that point in time for both a legal lake level and the lake improvement board you guys are passing.
Ryan, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry.
What your position is and.
I'm Ryan Bowashik with the Oakland County Water Resource Commissioner's Office. I am the civil engineer over all of the lakes that the county manages. So I manage our dams and our lake improvement boards. So that's primarily what I do at the county. So yeah, we met with the residents. They signed petitions for both the lake improvement board and for us to have a lake level. County Commission 2 months ago now approved the lake level. So we're moving forward with that for them. And then you guys are passing a resolution to act on a petition for lake improvement board. So with that, the city's requirements are there's two members of the city that will sit on that lake improvement board. It functions as its own little mini government to essentially manage the weeds on a lake. That's what it's going to be doing at this point in time. It can do other things, but it sounds like they just want to continue the retreatment in a more formalized fashion out there. So we'll be conducting a study as part of that, just to make sure we're doing the right treatments out there. And then once that study is complete, we'll set a budget and work off of that budget to do the treatments. That'll meet typically every 5 years. They have 2 large hearings, hearing practicality, hearing and assessment, and then they'll meet once a year to basically go, yep, we're moving forward as intended, and prepay the bills for next year and make sure that all the bills from the previous year are in line. And from that, I'll open up to questions because it's a pretty open subject.
But the residents will pay for.
Yes, so it's a special assessment district, so yes.
Resource staff.
Yeah, so the community does have power of purse with those, that's how it's written. So the improvement board will say, yes, go ahead and pay this bill, pass the bill out to the community to just get the bill paid.
And who pays the administrative costs of this?
So typically that does end up in overhead for a lot of communities, but I do know of communities that have a fee that they pay.
Right, it would seem to me that we should, that any administrative costs that are incurred, the city shouldn't bear this.
No.
That it should be borne and incorporated in their fee structure.
I would think that you want to try to, that the lake board should roll those expenses into the special assessment.
Right.
Especially assess those expenses as well as the cost of doing the weed harvesting and
Right.
whatever else.
So we bill, the city bills them for this?
Why do they need a city?
They need a taxing entity to basically send out the bill. It's no different than a special assessment we just did for Trowbridge. We send those bills out, but the special assessments, get paid.
So what happens if I'm a lake owner and I don't want to pay the bill?
You have to.
It's on your taxes. It's
Yeah.
not actually a bill. You don't get a bill. It is on your taxes.
Oh, it is included in
It
your
is,
taxes?
yeah, so when we make that a special assessment roll, it gets sent over to the community to get put on their taxes. It's not a bill, it's a tax on their home.
Oh,
At which point that is now lienable, it's collectible through delinquency, it is a full tax, it's not just a bill.
So if you live in Bay Lake, when you get your property tax bill, there will now be a new column on your property tax bill, which will say Bay Lake Special Assessment.
Yep, Bay Lake Lake Improvement.
And
Board.
without forming this improvement board, they don't have that ability to add it to the taxes. It's just a voluntary thing.
It's all voluntary, and that's the issue they run into, is people move out, people move in, some people want to do it, some people don't want to do it. They want to get that consistency so they can maintain the treatment out there, and that's why they signed the petition to make the Lake Improvement Board.
Statutorily, once a community gets a petition signed by 2/3 the freeholders owning land abutting the lake, once the municipality receives that, it's involuntary. We have to do it. The statute requires the municipality to create the lake board, which is.
I mean, I don't mind doing it because can it ever be dissolved?
Sure.
No, technically no.
Well, the statute says you can.
Yeah,
It-
there's no process to do it, it just goes inactive. You can stop taxing, but there's actually no process in the statute to actually dissolve it officially.
Wait a minute, how do we stop taxing? Someone calls us and
You don't
tells
have a
us?
project.
You just don't have a project, so we'll approve a 5-year budget
Yeah.
to do this lake, and then
Oh.
basically every 5 years, we'll reapprove a 5-year budget, just like you would with another stuff. They don't do another one of those, it's just a district that exists, and that's it. Officially, there is no way to dissolve it. It says you can, but they don't explain how to dissolve it, so we just leave them inactive.
And then you approve the methodology? Is it weed harvesting, like with the machines, or is it chemically treated?
I believe they do chemical treatment out there.
Do you do it or someone else?
Don't they have to get eco permits?
Yep, there's Eagle permits for that. The board will be the one acting on it. So the board consists of one person from the Water Resource Commissioner's Office, County Commissioner, one riparian, and then 2 people from the local community.
Can we charge expenses for the time spent by our 2 representatives that are on the board?
Can you? That's more of a legal question. I don't see communities that do it, but I don't, there's nothing in it saying they can't as far as I'm aware.
Sorry,
Because that's what the statute says.
can you what?
You charge for the 2 people on the board for their time.
No, can't charge the time.
Can you name other lakes that have the statute?
We have 46 in the county that have
If
it.
you go to
How
Bloomfield
many
Township, there's,
Zero.
Bloomfield Township has what, 13, 15,
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah.
Boards.
Yeah, Bloomfield Township has quite a few, Waterford has quite a few.
Bloomfield has some.
Yeah.
Virtually every lake in Bloomfield Township, I can't say every lake, but almost every lake.
Pretty much they all of them do. And they're, Bloomfield Township is very active with theirs. We have the same rep on all of theirs because Bloomfield Township handles most of it themselves. And then other communities, our rep ends up doing a lot of the work from the Drain Commission's office. Just depends on the community and how much effort they want to put into it. If they're not putting a whole lot into it, it ends up, they're coming to a meeting once a year, and that's really about it for the most part. And voting in, typically, whatever the riparian wants and the people in the community show up to, that's what you're gonna vote for, so.
But Ryan is correct, it's project driven.
Yes. So they'll choose to do a project, their project, they already do chemical treatments. They continue with their chemical treatments out there. I don't see harvesting out there, it's not exactly a huge lake, it's quite small, it's only 26 residents, but if that's something you want to pursue, it'd be a different project, and they'd have to go through the process to have another project, essentially.
But they're currently not able to collect the money from their residents, is that why they want to do this?
They can
Some
collect the
will,
money,
some won't.
yes, some will, some won't, yes, that's correct.
This is why they require everybody.
Yeah,
The 25 years ago, I lived on Orchard Lake, and we would harvest, but it was all volunteers, so maybe 50% of the people paid.
Yeah, they just want to make sure that everyone's paying their fair share. And so the other thing they're also doing is they petitioned us for the lake level control structure for us to take ownership of that dam there. So we are in that process. They're aware we're looking for a deposit from them to kind of get the study portion of that started. And once that kind of gets going, we'll be taking that to circuit court to officially have a legal level established, a similar special assessment district set up so that we're able to both pay them back the deposit and start on the process of designing a new structure there because that dam is in poor shape.
The lake level, though, the lake level process is separate and apart from this. We're involved in the lake improvement process, lake improvement board process, the lake level process, the city is not involved.
And that's just more an informational for you guys as a direction we're going
Wow,
with it.
so the residents I mean, I know when they redid the private lake, Endicott Lake, it was a like $400,000 dam. So
Yeah,
they assessed I mean, 2 or 3 of the residents paid for almost the whole thing,
Mhm.
mostly.
So
So
they're,
these residents understand all of a sudden they could be assessed a lot of money.
when I told them that my last one cost $8 and I would expect something close to $1 million, I had some people in the room ask me where to send their check to pay their portion of it. So they're aware of it. They know their dam is not in good shape, and they don't want to lose their lake, so.
So the appropriate, it's a twofold action. The first action would be to adopt the resolution. There's an amended resolution that was put on everybody's, on the dais today. So that would be the first thing you have to do. Once you adopt the resolution, then the next thing that you would have to do is make a motion appointing 2 people to serve as the city representatives on the lake.
And we have, Dave and Amy have volunteered if we decide we want them to be the 2 representatives.
Yeah, certainly be appropriate.
They are willing to,
Oh, that's very nice.
yeah.
And do we need in this resolution to state that whatever special assessment district should include administrative?
You do that.
So how do we know that that will happen?
Because we're going to be, the lake board itself doesn't really have any administration, so we're going to be the administration. So we just make sure that it gets included.
Because we're going to attach the tax.
The city's going to be doing, lake boards don't really have their own administration, so the municipality that they're in essentially acts as the administration. So we'll be preparing the bills and.
You bill yourself.
Right.
For paperwork, you bill yourself for the fees for producing or the mailing, or that's how.
And that's just controlled by the special assessment.
Yeah,
So
it
does not-
is a circle, but you bill the lake board for your administrative, the mailings, the noticing, if the, whatever those are, and then that just gets rolled into the expense.
So it won't affect any other taxpayers off of the lake. Won't be an expense to.
Other than the time of your 2 members serving on the lake board, but these things are hot and heavy up front, they get going, right? And then they just taper off into just kind of standard practice until somebody wants to do something more, right? Dredge or whatever, then it becomes a bigger issue.
So we're heavy into our meeting season right now. My typical meeting is about 25 minutes. It is quick. Yep, we treated last year, any issues? Okay, let's talk to the contractor,
Let's start.
pre-approve, right? And we're done. They're very fast meetings, so.
Okay, are we ready for a motion? This would be with respect to the resolutions that, the new set of resolutions that we received this evening on our table, not the one that was included on the agenda packet. This one.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution establishing the Bay Lake Improvement Board.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, now we need to make a second motion appointing 2 city representatives to serve as members of the Bay Lake Improvement Board. And as I said, Amy and Dave Henderson have agreed.
I'll make a motion to appoint Dave Henderson and Amy Burton to serve on the board of the Bay Lake Improvement Board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving right on, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll now discuss the proposed grading ordinance amendments.
Evening, everyone. At our last meeting, we proposed, in March, we proposed, or we responded to concerns between the Planning Commission and City Commission about ordinance or grading or stormwater management related to new development. I thought we had a really great conversation. We took that feedback and as we talked about, there still needed to be some ordinance amendments. I think what we tried to do is capture the City Commission's desire to leave less prescriptive and more general in terms of what the issues were and how to address them, but still address what we've raised as the ability to enforce and the ability to manage this. So before you are red line, I'm going to work off the red line version. It's just easier to see that our office put together with Dirk and obviously Dave and the administrative staff. And I just want to kind of walk through what these are and why. We, in the intent section up front, purpose and intent, we wanted to clearly identify and articulate that it's not just a single home, it's the cumulative effect of all of these big homes and whatnot. So as we continue to see the impact from, it's not just one person's garage, it's the fact that, or an accessory structure, it's 10 accessory structures. So we wanted to make sure in D there that we talk about that being, impervious surfaces in the individual, the intent section, which we rely on very heavily, and we reference quite a bit, so make sure that was pretty clear and robust there. We talked about, we added more teeth, I think, or direction related to volume, rate, water quality, required by the city in circumstances where impervious surfaces, conveyance, or changes will or are likely to lead to enhancements. This is under the drainage shall be adequately discharged off-site section. And then we talked about, the next section is really about maintenance. We talked about being able to make sure that these things were an ordinance issue or an enforceable ordinance issue related to maintenance. We talked about the maintenance plan, there number 18, the same thing. And then we put in a paragraph, I don't know page numbers on here, but in section 7.5-6, completion of the work, final grade inspection. We wanted to make sure that everyone understood that this is all the way through, includes the final grading, the landscaping, road restoration under the road provision section of city ordinance, and any stormwater measures. So the grading ordinance, as we talk about, is all the way through project completion. A lot of times we get grading plans, and then landscape plans, are 18 months later, and they come in and do everything up or make it more difficult. So the grading follows all the way through. We want the stormwater to do the same. And then the last major issue is the grading. Planning Commission has generally required or prefers and likes to see these color-coded analyses to showing, to clearly articulating where the cuts and fills are. And sometimes the applicant knows to do that, and they do that immediately, and sometimes our staff has to do that, which goes to their escrow. But we put it in here that it's up to the applicant to make sure that they do that, because I think that is the most valuable tool to clearly articulate what the grading issues are. And that's something not really that came out of City Commission conversation, but something we've been wanting to change and add. Some of these are what we wanted to change in the ordinance anyways. So we think this is a great first step in bridging that conversation of we need to do more on stormwater, but not going as far as we may have recommended last month. So we think it's a good opportunity to have that over here for recommendations for approval. Yeah.
So that last part that you've added in, is that just so that if they don't make a topography, sketch and prove that they have the right grading, then you will do it and the cost incurred by your company?
Yeah, so
putting that together will be part of the estimate.
It doesn't say it this way. What it says is they're responsible to do it, and if they don't, then we don't. I'm not sending them to Planning Commission. It also gives us the ability to ask them to stake it so we can go look at it. These are things that we've been trying to do with more complicated sites, anyways, to ask them to do stuff. And we go, why do I got to send a survey crew out there? Well, you're asking for an 11-foot wall and 10-foot of cuts. It would be nice if our Planning Commission members or our City Commission members could go look at that in the field. So no, it doesn't necessarily give us, there's no conversation about escrow or what we do. It just makes it clearly their responsibility to make sure we have the ability, we have the ability to ask and have the responsibility to respond and go take care of it for us. Because some of these sites, you know, like you say, the easy ones are all done. Right, we're working on hard ones now, and it might be beneficial to have someone go stake it or do something in the field. But, you know, that's $500, $600, you know, and we get pushback, you know, people, I don't want to do that, like, you know, so we thought, you know, fine, you don't want to do grading thing, we'll do it. And then we, you know, goes to the escrow. You know, I don't want to go out there staking things, and, you know, that's a different conversation, but that's just something that we felt over the last maybe 18 months, 2 years. I said to myself, if there's ever a chance that we're going to amend the grading ordinance, I'm going to make sure that this gets articulated in there, because this is something that we've been asking more and more people to do. The planning commission has been asking for that exhibit for probably 2 years now. So we thought it would be good to go with along the lines of an applicant should be able to read this and know what's expected of them walking in the door, and now they have that in front of them. So if you have to answer any questions in here, don't want to speak to dirt, but engineering, legal, administrative, we're feeling pretty good about these amendments.
I like the language about the stormwater management measures required by the city will be properly maintained by the property owner and at their own cost. And I like that we're simply reserving the right to inspect and not assuming an obligation to inspect. So I really like that language.
That was Dirk's.
They got it.
It was at TJ.
I started at Dirk, I was, no, cross it, we're going to say this way. So thou shalt maintain, he goes, you can't say that, you gotta say it more politely. Any other questions, just now?
Yeah, no, it seems to make sense to me because we need to be able to give you, the staff, or the planning commission, a little bit more teeth on some of these projects, because whether it's one individual house or cumulative, I mean, again, they're taking down the trees and they're planting their ornamentals that don't suck up as much of the water, and the houses are bigger. So this will give us more, that we may require them to do more things.
And we'll continue like we normally do, we'll continue to monitor it, and if we feel that it's not going far enough or too far, we'll report back. I don't think we can go too far in this measure, but if we need to go more prescriptive, thou shall, then we'll bring that back and have that conversation. I think this is a great first step based on the feedback we got last month.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, we have a motion. Well, I can, with respect to the amendments presented to us tonight to sections 7.5-0, 7.5-2, 7.5-3, 7.5-6, and 7.5-9 of Chapter 7.5, grading of the Bloomfield Hills City Code is amended to clarify when stormwater management measures are required and to provide the requirements for such stormwater management measures. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The next thing is the budget, and I think are we gonna move it to the other two? Oh, I'm sorry, manager comments.
The only thing that I was going to ask, actually Jamie, is there any updates on the Chesterfield analysis? Is that going to be part of our budget discussion?
Yeah, so, as you recall, in January, we had a conversation about the next step in determining the ultimate and the best solution for the Chesterfield Road culverts, the lower culverts, lower ones, in relation to the ability to do a rehab with an offset culvert, with way less impacts to the road and to the residents and the brand new pavement, or whether it would be a full replacement. And based on the analysis we were able to do, I don't have a final out there today, because we haven't got the big culvert done, but I was pleasantly surprised in that the impacts related, because of the dam that's there and the control that generates, is the culvert pipe that we have to put in. So remember, we're going to shrink the size of the culverts that are going under the road, putting concrete in to make them more like a new concrete pipe. So we have to offset that. And that was only turned out to be an 18-inch culvert. So it's a readily, I thought, my brain was telling me it might be something bigger, which would be more impactful. 3 foot deep, 18-inch culvert is going to be, 6 foot wide hole in the ground. That's a 2-day operation versus the whole thing. So I feel, the point being, Dave asked me to update, which is that we are still feeling still feeling good about the lower estimate of the rehab option is probably shaping up to be a better solution, less impact, less money, and still provide you a long-term benefit to the road. I'm still designing the box culvert, how big the thing needs to be to go the other route. I'm gonna say it this way again, in between not January and today, the change in the change in position of Eagle as it relates to floodplains has changed dramatically. What I mean by that is they are, FEMA has issued a statement to them saying they need to be doing more in relation to their mapping. The mapping is completely outdated. So what that means is applicants now are stuck trying to make up for 4 years of bad data. So if there's nothing else, the cost and longevity and cost per year and things that we talked about before, how long each of these solutions will go, we might just want to go, because you might find yourself into a $50,000, $100,000 mapping exercise just to replace these culverts versus something pretty straightforward. It is becoming way more difficult in all my communities. In fact, I have a meeting with Eagle tomorrow afternoon to discuss some of these problems. It's not fair to a community that's been playing by the rules like you have over the years. Just because you haven't paid to have your maps done, which by the way, you didn't pay to have your maps done the first 2 times. So it's just, that has become, regulatory issues are becoming more and more problematic, and that's gonna drive us potentially into, let's get this thing going and over with as soon as possible.
There was at the federal level, they came down with something a couple weeks ago that dry streams now can be regulated by
Yes.
Eagle or whoever, so it's.
So there's a lot, there's a whole, the ebbs and flow seems to not be more flowing without ebbing in relation to environmental regulation. Okay? And the National Flood Insurance Program is set up so that people inadvertently know their flood risks and therefore can obtain insurance. We've been managing, and the city's been managing people out of that for years, right? There's not been new homes constructed really in any of those issues. Maybe some fill, maybe some paths, maybe some grades. So you guys are doing pretty good. But the maps are still based on 1950s and 60s flow data, 1970s cross sections, and 1970s rainfall data. They're not right. I saw one that was redone, and the increase was 4 feet. Think about what that would mean for flood insurance in Bloomfield Hills if every stream floodplain went up 4 feet, right? So long story short, I mean that, I'm soapboxing a moment, but the answer is, I think we need to consider the shortest distance between 2 points might be to rehab this thing at a lower cost. It's a good solution. I think it's a great solution. And now that we know the culvert's has to be so big, and we can do this quick and painless, might be the option. I will have the direct answer for that in the next month or so. But they wanted me to update you on that. Really, because it's in budget. It's still a $500,000 solution.
No matter what, yeah.
I have a question for you regarding that. So, how old do you think this culvert, the existing culvert is?
Oh, I think they're 50, 60 years old.
Okay, so it's 50 or 60 years old. This new solution to rehab it, not replace it, how long do you anticipate that? 20 years?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A new concrete box pipe, you talk about 50 years, right?
Okay.
There's pipe in this community that has been there for 70, 80, 90 years, right? This happens to be metal in a water environment that fluctuates up and down, aeration, oxidation, boom, that blows out. That's what's going to happen. This new concrete coating on that, we talk about fills in all the gaps, stops it from going, is a high quality solution. I don't think anyone would tell you it's a million years, but it's a good, solid 20-year solution. It's not a 50, 60-year brand new box culvert, but even that requires maintenance. You got to make sure that we don't get trees stuck in there and things happen. But the dam protects this thing actually from a lot of that, so it'll be in good shape.
In the flow, Eagle and you will agree on that the flow doesn't change, just so Endicott doesn't back up.
We have to match it to under 0.005 feet. So look at this, Councilman Baxter, how many inches is that? I can't remember, but it's
0.005
feet.
Oh,
Yeah.
feet. Oh.
So multiply that by, I mean, it's, you know, you're talking changes in the floodplain that are negligible. And that's, to me, that's an 18-inch culvert. We've done the math, it's an 18-inch culvert, which means we don't have a huge cut, we don't have a huge expense. That's pipe we can buy on Clarkson, put the thing in, do the concrete.
But I guess I'm looking, given some other experience that we had, that Eagle is also certifying this as not doing anything differently.
We
So
provide
then
a
it's
report.
not just on us.
We supply the hydraulic report, their hydraulic engineers review it and issue a permit, and they have to keep it within those tolerances. So as long as
Okay.
they agree, we're in good shape.
So why wouldn't you just build the largest culvert you could?
Because, yeah, great question, which means I am balancing two things. One, releasing the same amount of water so the upstream properties flood the same, but not releasing too much water downstream so the downstream properties don't change. I'm trying to make it status quo to the information we have, okay? Because otherwise I'm just passing.
The brown downstream.
Hey, you bought on a stream, you bought next to a floodplain, you should have some expectations of flooding. Our job is to make sure these improvements don't dramatically change that. But of course, the second we do anything and they get the
Well, that's why-
100-year event, you know, of course it's the new shiny
That's
object.
why if Eagle is also certified this, then it's not just our decision, if there is a 100-year or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let me think, let's not talk about 100-year. We get a design event that's in the model that reflects that elevation. That could be a 2-year event or a 10-year. It's just, they're all over the board. We gotta stop talking about 100-year events because that doesn't really exist, these models anymore. We learned that. Anyways, so Dave wanted me to give a couple minutes, so.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Any other business to consider?
I have just a couple things. We luckily were out of town for that heavy snowfall that you guys all had about a month ago, but came home and saw the damage to the trees. And we have a lot of arborvitae trees that are like split in 4. We have a lot of trees and limbs and branches. I know that those that fall on the individual's property, they have to take care of, correct, on those? So anything that's in our right of way, though, is something that we need to take care of.
It depends, because if it's branches that fell from the person's property on our right of way, sometimes we clean it up, but what we're doing right now is our code enforcement officers working with a lot of folks to clean some of these things up. That since that ice storm, some residents have had problems not getting tree service out there, so we're just patiently working with everybody to try to clean some of these things up. That anything that you see, let me know and we'll figure out whose responsibility it is and take care of it.
Okay, yeah, I just noticed there's a lot, there's just a lot, and now it's making me look at trees that, like, are leaning. And so like, if we see a tree, most notably, I was at the corner of Gloucester and Long Lake, north down, and on the township side, just north that corner up there, there's a tree like this. I'm thinking to myself, I would hate to be the car underneath that tree. Like, do we just wait till they fall, or?
No, we don't. And even a tree on private property, we have an ordinance that requires the residents to take care of that issue because it is a safety issue. But on lots or north of Long Lake, what you're speaking of could be on city property because Gloucester's right away north of Long Lake is the city. So I'd be happy to go take a look at it.
Yeah, drive by and take a look. I just was stopped at the light and I'm sitting there looking at this tree on.
Yeah.
That's pretty leaning pretty far. I just noticed a lot of the damage with it and,
Yeah, it's an issue. We take care of it. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of times it's really close because some trees will lay right on the property line, but if it lays on the property line, we typically take care of them, especially if it's more on the city side. But if it's within the property, it's right within, we it's the residents' responsibility. And it can be expensive to take some of these trees down. It could be thousands of
Oh,
dollars.
yeah, it's really, yeah, it's the bigger the tree, the more expensive it is. I also called Dave this week, because I just noticed on Lone Pine that we're starting to get a lot of dips and cracks on Lone Pine, and so I asked Dave just to drive that, and before it gets worse. I'd rather fix them now than wait till it gets really bad, and we have to do some major repairs on that.
You brought up a good point some time ago, I think probably about 6 months ago, about some of the structures in Lone Pine in particular that are sinking and that. So we're actually going to be fixing all those on Lone Pine between Woodward and all the way down. I think there's about 13 structures that we're going to be fixing
Yeah,
soon.
why does that happen? Something wasn't done right? I mean, that road was done in 2010, so it was before your time, but
Sometimes, some of these structures are built up with bricks, and sometimes just water or whatever going in there can disintegrate some of that infrastructure. But we're gonna shore them up and we're gonna cement around them, so then when we do replace the road, those structures should be solid and should be in the right spot, the right elevation. This is my thought. And then you had mentioned some of these areas that are failing, and we're gonna cut some of those things out this year and fix that. We still think that the road overall is in pretty good shape and doesn't need a mill and overlay.
No.
But at some point, we should, when we do mill and overlay, let's say maybe 5 to 10 years, those structures should be sound the way we're doing them, and then,
Yeah,
that's our approach.
Yeah, I think too. Also, I had a resident approach me on, what's the name of that road? The dirt road over by Vaughn in Cranbrook School.
Hillcrest, or no, not Country Club, but Pembroke?
Pembroke.
Yeah.
And asking me about, that's the dirt road in our country club, we paved part of the way up, the residents paid for that, an
Yeah.
assessment, because all of that dirt was coming down. So did you ever reach out to that resident?
Yeah, I've been talking with her, I can reach back out to her. I've not talked with her, but I can say that the country club process it's really worked well. The country club improvements really worked well.
So we're
The
talking
resident
about,
appreciate it.
because that's the one that all the dirt rolls down on the Vaughn Road and then falls, a resident just said that they might be interested in paving that one too, to get that fixed.
You're talking about where it hits on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge lake there.
Yeah, so they, and I said, well, here's the process, and you would, the residents have to pay, with the city pays, what, 10%?
But Mike McCready, who was mayor, he approached all and campaigned all up and down Pembroke, and they wouldn't, the vote didn't go for paving.
Yeah, I think we got some
more
good
than once
residents.
they tried.
Yeah.
A couple times.
Yeah.
And country club was a little bit different. I think the city had to do some improvements there as far as either some sewer, some water main right there. So the city paid for that, but the paving the residents paid for it. So it kind of worked out. But it was really successful. It's eliminated the gravel going on.
All right, I'll follow up with that resident too, and just make sure that they get back with you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay.
What's happening with Trowbridge Farms?
So Trowbridge Farms is starting to actually move all the structures. So there's all the structures that are in the dirt road part, not the ones that are outside the road improvement, have to be adjusted. So they're all going to be, the decision was they're all going to be adjusted to a certain elevation, and I'm going to keep that elevation completely level where the chip seal is going to end up. So that's the first process. So we're going to adjust all the structures. I think they're starting next week, and it should take about a week or so. Then after they adjust all the structures, they'll go through and grade all of it, compact it and grade it, so you have a really solid base. And then they'll go through with the chip seal process, and there's 2 chip seal layers to begin with, and there's going to be a third one in about 6 months, I believe.
Will the roads be closed temporarily?
No, I mean, I think even with, not with the chip seal process, and even with the structures, we've only identified a couple of structures that are in the middle of the road that may cause a temporary closure right there, but most of them, we've closed it down one lane that folks can squeeze by.
If I may, going down the hill on Canterbury, where we're building on the storm sewer and doing all the other work, is gonna be shut. I mean, there's no way to keep traffic
Yeah.
in that stretch. And when the machine's in front of the driveway, obviously you might have to wait a bit, but once they're through and they roll it out, then you can go get back
Because
up.
at the corner of Canterbury, I mentioned this to Dave last week, at the corner of Canterbury and Trowbridge Road, there's a home that's being partially demolished and rebuilt, and every day they have cars parked up and down. They haven't recently because they're tearing the roof out, and apparently it's just the roof people for now, but the last few weeks they've had trucks and parked up and down both Canterbury and Trowbridge. And if they're parked there, how can they do the?
They're not supposed to be parking on the road.
Well, the trucks are in the driveway, but the cars, there's cars, they're like 10 or 12.
Yeah, they're not
of them.
supposed to
They're not
park
supposed
on
to
the
be doing
street.
that.
It's
Yeah.
against our
They're-
ordinance.
Please.
Okay. Well, they haven't been doing it the last few days because it's just the roofing people there right now. But last week, they were there all the time.
It might be a good idea is actually, Brian, you're gonna know the builder out there. We're working with the folks that are rehabbing that house and putting an addition on. But there's some discussion with what they can do because they actually have an existing non-conforming situation with some setbacks. And we're working with them right now because some of their dormers are kind of leaning over into the setbacks to be a ZBA issue. We're trying to see, initially they said they're going to not have that, so we're trying to work with them right now. But I think maybe the best thing to do is to have Brian, why don't you just talk with them, let them know what's coming. We're going to be doing this road and we can't have it in the street. We're going to be doing, redoing the structures next week. So give them all the rules and we'll add, I think it's on our list, isn't it? Is that on our list, Amy? So
Is that in the proper ones?
Yes.
yeah, so what we do is we give the public safety department, every house, I think we have about 6 or 8 new homes that are being built right now. And part of their job is when they have time to drive through these neighborhoods and check the houses. On top of our code enforcement officer, because he only works days. So sometimes folks come out and park out there. So just, in a friendly way, we're trying to just keep the ordinances right. But I appreciate you bringing it to our attention because actually Commissioner McCarthy brought one to our attention earlier today. I didn't know these folks were parking out in the street and we went over there and immediately took care of it. That's what we did. Call us and we'll immediately take care of it.
I don't know where they're going to put all the cars because there's more cars than we have driveway space.
Well, what they do is they would have to put down like a crushed concrete pad.
On the grass. They
Yeah,
don't have much of a front yard there in their house.
that's what they have to
That's
do.
what we
Or
often do for construction.
they have to do some transports and that. We can actually, Brian can actually talk with them, give us some ideas how to do it, but we have to treat it the same.
Yeah, the one that today was particularly, you gotta think about this, it was on a hill. And I was going up the hill and I'm going, I gotta go on the other side of the road and I can't see over this hill.
Oh, yeah, that's so dangerous.
Yeah, that's very dangerous. So we're not doing it to be mean, we're doing them for safety
Right,
reasons. Yeah.
But we want to hear about this. We can't always see every little issue, so when you pull the calls, we appreciate it.
Neighborhood watch.
Yes.
Okay, the budget, we ready for the budget?
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
did
done.
you want to-